Hi everybody, Dr. Pingle here. In this part of the notebook, we're going to talk about using a program called GIMP, the new image manipulation program, to create animated GIFs. So animated GIFs are a handy way of distributing your animated content if you only have a few frames. So some of the smoother, more video-like animations we'll use other software for. But if you're really just creating a couple of things that sort of alternate between a couple of different images, GIMP is kind of a nice way to go. One of the nice things about GIMP is that it's free and open source. There are versions for this that you can get for Windows, Mac, Linux, and so it's a nice cross-platform toolkit. It's basically like a version of Adobe Photoshop, so there's quite a bit of photo editing that you can do while you're using this. But we're just going to explore one of the features, which is to create an animated GIF. So once you download and install this, it's not a very big program. You'll find it in your desktop. It can take a little bit of time to start up, especially the first time. So we'll give it a moment here to get started. When it loads up, it's a blank screen. You can see you've got a toolkit here. This may or may not be visible. This is a color picker. If you open this up, you can see that we don't really have a lot going on here. Now, to open an image, you can go to File and Open. And on the desktop, I've got a pile of these images, which I provided you a link to. So we could load up one of these, for instance, and it would look like this. So this is just a simple rendering of some archaeological sites. And what we're going to do is animate this through time. Now, there's a lot of dressing up that we could do, but this is a good sort of proof of concept. One of the things that we've tried to make sure is going on here is we've got some symbolization that's going to be related to the time period. So as the time animation goes through, the circle shape that gets animated from all of these sites is going to get darker. So that's going to distinguish between what sites were visible or what sites were occupied during this period and what sites were not occupied during this period. So I'm going to close this image. You can see that closing that out still leaves the image right here. What I want to do to open all of these is to open as layers. So I'm going to browse to that same directory, highlight all of the images that I'm interested in. So in this case, this is 6 frames, and hit open. So it's going to go through and open all of these, but they're going to open as frames. So you're only going to, or layers, I should say. So you're only going to see one of the layers. These are all actually stacked one on top of another. So if we go to Windows and Dockable Dialogues, we can open up this Layers toolkit, and you can see all of the layers are right here. So we could add more layers in here. You don't have to open them all up at one time, but this is the what we're interested in. So this is at the top, and this is at the bottom. You can turn visibility on for all of these, so you can kind of browse through these different ones. So there's the first one, the second time period, third time period. You can see we've got more settlements. Fourth time period, sixth, and then this is at the point of decline where we're back down to 2. So to create the animated GIF, this is actually very easy. We can go up to File. We're going to export as. So we don't want to use save because that's going to save to a GIMP native format. So we're going to do export. And then I'm going to browse and just save this as animation.gif. And we'll hit export. Now, when it has a GIF extension and layers, you're going to get a second dialog box that comes up here. It looks like this. Now you can see a number of different options. Interlace has to do with how the images are stored and loaded. You can leave that unchecked. The GIF comment doesn't really matter. It's going to be checked by default and say created with GIF. You can leave that alone. But what we care about is save as animation. So what we want to do is we can check this box to say whether it loops forever. So whether when it's done with its animation, if it goes back to the beginning and starts over again. Generally, you want to leave this checked, but it depends on what you're doing. And then this is pretty key, the delay between frames where unspecified. So we're going to put a 200, actually we're going to put a 1,000 millisecond or a 1 second time step in between all of these frames. With that, we can go ahead and hit export. So this may take a while. So it's going to render all of those out to a GIF. So I'm going to pause the video while it does that, and we'll be back when it's done. Okay, that export is done. So if we look in our original directory, we've got this animation that we've created. If we double click on that, we'll get a rendering. So you'll see it step through at these different time intervals and circle back to the beginning. Now we can adjust that time period based on what is effective. Remember that if the animation moves too quickly, then your viewer may have a hard time kind of following and parsing what's going on. So if I were doing this, I would probably set this to a time somewhat longer than this, maybe 2.5 seconds or so. The last thing that I want to mention here is the creation of this. So each frame out of this was created in ArcGIS and rendered out. What this does is it gives you a lot of control over the appearance. You know, each frame can be sort of carefully crafted, and then each frame is just sort of appended onto the next one to create this sort of step through animation. It's not particularly smooth. If you're looking for something that's going to look a little bit more polished than the other tools that we're going to look at in the notebook, including the stuff that's available in Arc Pro, may help you out. But for simple portable displays, animated GIFs are kind of a really nice way to go. One last thing before we kind of move on with this is to look at the file size. So you always have to be a little cognizant of how much how big what you're creating is. So a lot of the AVIs or movies that we're going to make with the other methods can get quite large. This one is only 14.5 megabytes, so this is still small enough that you could pretty easily email to someone, pretty easy to embed in a PowerPoint. It also retains the original resolution of the input images. So if you look at the dimensions of this one, it's 2500 by 3300. So fairly large, better than HD quality. So that's another nice feature of going through GIMP is that you're going to retain and have very fine control over exactly the size of these input images. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.